looking for, right?
No, I mean, I was, it was my first set of interviews, so I definitely had some learning to do, which is another thing I suggest. Like the best way to prepare for interviews, I think rehearsals are important, but sometimes you just, uh, it's like being, playing in the game versus practicing for the game. You kind of have to be faced with these questions from left field, or just being in that situation where you're not expecting to answer something, to work through it. Because what I started to realize is, I might have had a set of 5 or 6 stories that I had in mind, but I could really kind of mold them to whatever the question was. So once I could do that, anytime somebody answered a question, I wasn't worrying about what my story was going to be. I already had 1 or 2 picked out. I would be thinking about, all right, how do I make this story fit what they want as an employee? They want somebody who can lead technical teams. Let me make sure in this story that I highlight the fact that, I am leading a large organization to provide maintenance for some very technical equipment. So things like that are, those are the things I'm like, I stick to the same structure of the story, but now instead of just rattling out the same story every time, I'm talking about the things that are important to the interviewer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious what. All right, Corey's got some great stuff here. So your responses must be centered on the job you're seeking. The hiring manager is trying to visualize in the role they are interviewing for and their culture. Absolutely, 100% right, Corey. Yeah. Rick, I agree. Love to hear, Rick. You have any thoughts? I know you've kind of been both on the entrepreneur side and kind of in the working world in several different roles. So love to hear anyone else. Their thoughts.
Scott, I was going to ask you, having been on the hiring side, like, have you seen anybody who's done it really well, where they're having sort of doing that Jedi mind trick where you're envisioning them in that role?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've got a problem to solve. I've got a hole in my organization. I've got too much work, and the people that are solving that problem in the interview and telling me how they're going to solve that problem by the questions I ask, that's huge. At the end of the day, people have their, you're solving a problem as the interviewee, as someone who's going to come to work for them. You're going to solve a problem for them. So if they're able to kind of show me in the interview how they're going to solve the problem, and just I can envision them fixing my problems, I mean, that's key for me.
Yeah, I think one of the tricks or techniques that I would use is if they asked me like, how do I lead people, like, pretty normal question in an interview. When I answered it, I would frame it as if I were leading people within their organization already, right? So instead of saying, in the past, this is what I've done, I'd say, I've got a lot of experience in my past, and this is what I've done. But I imagine an environment like yours, where there's a lot of very talented people. I would have to bring them in and make sure that we were all on the same page, and that I was drawing and willing to draw on from their expertise. Kind of so. I mean, it's kind of so that it's kind of weird when they say, you have to get the hiring manager to visualize you in that role. So I kind of took that literally, like, I'm going to speak as if I'm already in that role or going to be, and this is what I'm going to do from day one.
Yeah, I mean, those are some of the most successful people, and a lot of people that I've hired have talked about how they're going to, hey, here's my plan for, I've done some research, and I think that's key as well. Having an understanding a little bit about the company you're going to interview for. Do you know what they're about, a little bit about the job? I mean, especially with the web today, you can find out so much about a company. If they're a public company, go and look under their stock ticker, look at some of their investor reporting, just learn a little bit about the company, follow them on social media, see what they're about. So if you can come in and talk about how you would envision, not knowing all the information, but hey, here's how I envision I would come in the first 30, 60, 90 days. Here's what I'm going to need to learn. And then here's the things that I'm going to do to solve problems for the organization. But, if I've got someone that comes in and already is talking about, hey, I understand, based on social media and your last investor report that you guys are struggling with inventory management. well, I have a background in inventory management, and during the first 30 days, here are the things that I want to do. I want to learn about your ERP system first, and then I'm going to talk to the other experts in your organization. And now here are the 4 or 5 things that I'm going to do in that 30, 60, 90. And then here's my plan going forward after that. Once I've learned that, here's how I'm going to do that. And, somebody that can come in and talk about what they're going to do and what their plan is, knowing that they don't know everything, but here's the things I'm going to do in that first 30, 60, 90 days to get up to speed has been valuable for me.
I'm kind of curious though, is there ever a fine line where you're thinking, yeah, this guy's getting creepy. He's starting to think way too far ahead, like assuming that he's got the job or.
Well, I mean, I think it's, I think one key component is, how much are they saying? Are they saying that, hey, they're already going to, have everything figured out? Then, hey, I know I'm going to be leading the entire team. I'm going to take over the team in 30, 60, 90 days. Absolutely not. But if they are, you definitely have to, have a sense of what it is you're going to be talking about. Certainly a fine line, but having a plan and at least having some kind of background and backing that up with, hey, I could be completely different when I get in the role, but just showing that, hey, I've done some research. I know a little bit about your company. I haven't just read the 2-paragraph job description. I'm
actually pretty at fault for doing that. But honestly, I mean, a lot of companies start sounding very similar by the end of it. I mean, because I was interviewing for a lot of medical sales type roles at one point, and I think I had 3 or 4 companies. One was Boston Scientific, another was Biotronic, another was Medtronic. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, just a few consonants and vowels off, but they're all doing the same thing, right?
It is, but if you can find out the specifics of, okay, well, what's different about, if you can talk about one, well, I know you're talking about this type of medical device or the other, and you can certainly, and depending on your transition on where you're at, if you're going through a recruiter, you could be hit with 10 different companies in a day.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I was actually going to disagree a little bit with, like knowing a lot about the company because, but only from my experience working with recruiters, because when recruiters bring you in to a hiring conference, for example, it's pretty last minute. You don't know the companies that are going to be there until that weekend. So you're learning about all these companies last minute, and you're learning about 10 different companies possibly.
And that's a good caveat because what I'm talking about. All the interviewing I've done is typically not been conference driven.
Like one-offs or something like that.
It's been, hey, for a specific role, and the HR managers are going out and actively bringing people in, and it may still be a group of people, so it's kind of the reverse. Several different candidates coming in for the role. So I agree, especially with recruiters, if you're doing that, different story. And certainly recruiting firms are great to help veterans transition. And then that's a great point too, Rick. Second interview, especially with those recruiting conferences.
Yeah, at that point you need to have dialed it in a little bit more and gotten more information.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I probably more realistic in this conversation. That's more like a second interview. Typically, there's been some time to screen before they get to me. But yeah, those conferences are a good first interview way to get to a second interview.
And, I mean, we had a good conversation about this the other day about working with recruiters. I mostly worked with recruiters when I was leaving the military, and I thought they were great for getting your foot in the door for a lot of these interviews, because a lot of the times my resume, now looking back, was definitely not ready to just be given to somebody cold. So having a recruiter sort of talk about veterans and what they can bring in that background, and also giving them the understanding that, hey, you're they're not going to be polished and know exactly what your company does, and which was actually a advantage, because now I didn't have to focus on each specific company. I was really just trying to present my best self, almost as like a generalist for all these different roles, and then in the second interview maybe get more specific.
Yeah, and that's probably a good distinction that we talked about as well. I'm from a hiring manager. I would be a hiring manager when I'm doing the interviewing. A lot of the interviews you're going to do at a job conference typically, or in many cases, are going to be the HR managers for those organizations, and kind of doing that first line screening. And and Corey brings up a great point that job fairs are their own animals, and it boils down to your appearance, elevator pitch, and a succinct resume. Absolutely, how you come across, and then kind of touching on a little bit on the recruiters as well. And to your point, you and I were talking about this the other day, but great. I got my first corporate job out of the Army through a recruiter, and I don't think I realized this when I was transitioning, but they certainly want to see you get hired, and they want to see you stick around for 6 months so they can get paid. But you need to understand that they have their own agenda. So if there are two really good jobs, and perhaps you're certainly leaning toward job A, but the recruiter gets a higher percentage for job B, guess which one they're going to push? It may not be the 100% exact right job for you. They may be pushing B. They may have their own agenda. So it's just something to keep in mind, not necessarily saying that recruiters are bad. I certainly benefited, but just understand that you do your due diligence, ask your questions, try to understand why they may be pushing for one role over another. So
you always want to assume the best in people. And I've written about this in salary negotiation, in my salary negotiation book, and just in various articles, because I think for veterans, it's important to understand you're responsible for your own career, for your own decisions, and you might be working with a recruiter and he's giving you advice, but sometimes you have to be careful about whether or not that advice is good. And of course, when I posted this in different sites, gotten a lot of flack from some recruiters saying, "Oh, I would never do this," and I was like, "Well, you guys must be that 1% that are 100% honest." And I actually found research to back up the fact that people that work for you as an agent, let's say a real estate agent or an agent for as in like a recruiter relationship, they will often not negotiate the best deal for you. And it's not a huge amount, it's just a small amount, but it's enough where you can understand that, the portion that they make on the commission, the percentage that they make usually isn't worth that extra, 1% or 10%, right? They might say they're giving you your 100%, they're probably giving you their 90%. I mean, they're just being human, right? The incentives aren't aligned to help you in that way. And that's totally okay, but it's important to be aware of that, working with recruiters, and they're playing you, but you should be able to play off of them as well.
Yeah, no, and Rick has a great point. Always look for the conflict of interest. If you're wondering why this recruiter, you have a great offer for a high dollar in your ideal location of Southern California, and your recruiter is pushing really hard for this job in South Dakota, may want to look for the conflict of interest and maybe find out is he getting paid a lot bigger commission to place someone in. Right. No offense to anyone who's from South Dakota, but it's not exactly on most people.
Or if you're a recruiter, I guess we're getting this.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Rick is from South Dakota, so I just. But you're in California though, Rick. So you're not living in South Dakota anymore. You've been. I don't know if you've lived there for a while. So.
Yeah. So I mean, we've been chatting for a while, Scott. If for anybody that has questions about anything we've talked about, feel free and go ahead and ask them now. We want to keep these things short so that we get a chance to interact with people. And I know Ruben, you've been trying to call in a couple times. I think now would be a good time if you had some questions or anything like that while we're chatting.
We've got some great people. And make sure you're following the people on this blab. I see some people here live. Dan Evans from the Marine Corps doing a lot of great things, and who's kind of in the midst of his transition. Corey Chrisman, make sure you're check him out, follow him. He's doing some great stuff. Rick Yost from Veterans List. We're going to be talking in future episodes about, or not even episodes, but future online chats, whatever it is, different options. There's the option for working in the corporate world. There's entrepreneurship options, and it may be a combination of both. You may need to transition short term to a corporate role to get some experience, but longer term, your goal is 3-5 years out, move on and go into entrepreneurship. So we're going to talk about those things as well.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it as being a transition seminar, but I mean, you're always transitioning, right? I mean, if you're at one job, you're looking at what you're going to be doing later on in your career. if you have a business, maybe what your backup will be to go back to the workforce. And I'm always improving my resume, even if I'm not searching for a job at the moment, and trying to make sure my LinkedIn stays up to date. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is lifelong. You might experience them all. That's so true.
Yeah.
I'm, like I said, I have a podcast focused on entrepreneurship, and that's something longer term that I have. I'm still working today for someone else, but longer term, I have a goal and vision of, going full time as an entrepreneur and working for myself. So, love to hear what you guys think, what your challenges are. I know Dan. I see Dan is live. Dan has also got, some Facebook groups out there on military entrepreneurship and transition. And, Dan, and I didn't even reply to this, but you had a really great post the other day. Dan had a great post talking about his transition and how much of a job that is. And how far are you out, Dan? I don't know if you can hop in the chat or just put in the comments, but how far you're out, but you're someone that I know you're right in the midst of 6 months or so. And I know you've been working for a while, and realize how critical it is, how important it is. I mean, you've done such an outstanding job, I think, of networking. And I think that's something that's huge and has gotten me, my role.
Scott, you want to take this one first, or?
So so Rick's asking, what's the best advice
question
each of you have heard from your podcast? And for me, I think it's doing something that you're passionate about. That's certainly, and it doesn't have to be entrepreneurship. I mean, I think if you can find a way to get excited about a role that you're going into, it makes all the difference. I think people see it around you, and that's going to propel you. Everyone that I see in my job today is, the people that are the most passionate about what they're doing. Those are the people that are getting promoted. Those are the people that are getting the opportunities. Those are the people that are excited about it. So having passion, regardless even if it's an entry level job. I saw a post today of, people doing all kinds of just even manual labor jobs, or a chef, or not even a chef, but a cook, chopping celery, but they were so precise. They were doing it with so much passion, and you could tell they were excited. They wanted to do it the very best that they could do. So I think for me, just having the passion and don't doing it just because it's a job and you need to earn a paycheck.
Have you, Scott, have you seen Jiro Dreams of Sushi on Netflix?
I've heard so much about it. I haven't heard about it, and it sounds like that's a very similar.
Yeah, talk about passion. He's got so some of the guys that work for Jiro, who's a sushi chef, they apprentice under him for years, and they have to cook rice for like 8 years before they're even allowed to start touching the fish.
That's amazing.
But then to add on to that, so the best advice I think I've heard from the podcast also has to do with passion. But I think it's more about how you find it, because I think passion gets thrown around, that word gets thrown around quite a bit. Yep. About doing what you love and things like that, but it's not easy. If it was that easy, people would just be doing it.
Absolutely, and I agree as well. I'm not talking about, all right, hey, you love hanging out on the beach, then go find a job hanging out on the beach. Hey, if you're going to go and be a production manager in a manufacturing facility, you can have passion for the people that you're supporting, that the people that work for you, for the product, the customer. So finding that excitement. Maybe passion is an overused word, but just excitement and enthusiasm.
Yeah, I think people can find it. I think so the best advice that I've heard about that from on the podcast was actually just recently. Larry Broughton came on and talked about intentionality, putting intention behind what you're going to do. So instead of waking up in the morning and responding to the emails and being very reactive, think about what are the things that you need to accomplish that will get you closer to where you want to be. This is a long journey, right? If you wanted to be a bum on the beach, you could make that happen. But there are some things that you have to intend for that to happen. Like you have to have some investments or some businesses or some side money or money saved up to be able to allow yourself that. Or on another note, you have to be willing to decide, hey, I'm not going to work 12 hours at my job today. I'm going to make the decision to go home at 8 hours because, then I can stay home and go home and see the kids. Because a lot of people, I allow that decision to be made for them. Like, oh, I have to work this hard when nobody says they have to. It's just like they think that's a point of pride. If they took a step back, they'd be doing important things that they had to get done that moves their career or their business or their life forward in the direction they want it to be. That I would say that'd be the best advice I've heard from my podcast.
Yeah, and that ties into a great book that I listened to a lot of books. I'm a podcaster, but I also listen to a lot of audiobooks. But it's called Essentialism, which is great. It's talking about doing less and focusing exactly what you're talking about. I think essentialism is absolutely it. And doing only the essential things, doing less, focusing on doing fewer things, but fewer things better, eliminating all the minutia and the stuff that it's amazing.
It's hard to do. It's hard to do.
Yeah. Oh, it's extremely difficult, but someone had the quote. It's amazing how unimportant almost everything is. And
it's one of the things I've been struggling with actually, because Scott, you know what I'm doing. I actually left my job early last year and have been sort of freelancing and traveling and things like that. But I've been, when you're on your own and you're setting your own schedule, there were days when I've been scrambling and doing as much as I could. But recently what I've been trying to do is say, what are the top 3 things I need to get done each day? And usually that's, write 1,500 words. That's work on this business project that I've been messing around with, like whether it's marketing or something like that. And then 3, it's connect to people. So whether it's on a blab or reaching out or on the phone, those are the only 3 things. Everything else, other than this past week, since I've been scrambling to finish my taxes because I have to get them done, like that's what I tell myself that I need to do. Because, for example, my mom, I'm sure would like for me to start job searching again. But while I have the benefit of this time to work and focus really hard on the things that I want to focus on, I want to take the opportunity to do that. The job search I can always, do later on. Or if I was in a certain career, taking one job that's higher pay versus one that's going to teach me the skills that I think I'll need long term, I would take the ones that would teach me the skills I would want long term. Trying to play the long game and just realizing, things will happen at the right place if you're focusing on the things that are important.
No, I couldn't agree more. Got some great comments by Corey here as well. And Corey's got his LinkedIn link, so I recommend you connect with Corey on LinkedIn. He's got some great posts on transition and veteran focused things. I know Corey's getting ready to and is actually in the process of starting his veteran focused company. He's also an outstanding winemaker. Corey's
looking forward to that. Yeah,
exactly. And Corey's going to be doing a LinkedIn article about, kind of the do's and don'ts and about transition. And Corey's got his link in there. Corey, feel free to jump in or make sure you guys follow Corey. And we're going to be doing more of these as well. So I think Byron just dropped in the link. If you want to get on the list and get notified when we do these again, click the link down there on the left-hand side. We're going to do, every couple of weeks have these and bring different guests on. You're not just going to hear from Byron and myself. You're going to have, our goal is to have someone with hair on at some point. So you're not always going to be looking at a couple of bald guys.
And it's also, really the reason I think Scott and I started our podcast was because I know for me, going through the transition, the most I learned was not from the transition classes. It wasn't from stuff I read online. It was reaching out to other veterans and those guys, guys and gals being willing to help me out and give me their guidance. So I've received a lot of mentorship and figured the best way to continue to pass that along was a platform such as this, a platform such as a podcast, so that people can listen. And as Scott was saying, you can sign up there, and we'll also be following up and letting people know when the recording is up, so that if they missed anything or wanted to listen in again, they can go back and listen to every live event.
And just feel free to anybody got any questions or any other comments love to hear it. Thanks all you guys for Jennifer. So Jennifer, as a civilian who works to support veterans in transition, this is a great venue. We appreciate it, Jennifer.
Yeah,
Jennifer,
thank you.
I've heard, certainly with through Corey and a lot of the great work, and I've seen a lot of the great work that you've been doing on Facebook and some of the awards and accolades that you've got. Certainly appreciate everyone that's jumped on. Corey, for your comments and looking to hopefully tap into your expertise here in the future. Rick, see Dan online, got some others that have jumped in. Really appreciate everyone listening in, and hope you got something out of this.
Yeah, hope you guys all have a good evening. Yeah.
That's right, Corey. We'll have to have another someone else with hair on to balance out the bald head crew here.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. See you in a couple weeks. Hopefully.
Sounds good, guys. Hit on the link, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Take care, Rick. Take care, Corey. Take care, Jennifer. See you guys. See anyone else out there? Dan?